When you're a major player in professional sport, it must all seem like a bit of a blur 24/7. Did this book give you the chance to sort of sit back and reflect on your career, both as a player at North Melbourne and then a coach at the Swans?
Yeah, it was a lot of reflection. Probably a mini therapy session too over the past 12 months. So it was great to be able to do. I mean, it took a bit of time for me to get my head around it, what it'd be like doing. So once I made the decision to do it, I was able to work on it every week, and yeah, I found it a really good process to go through, and just piecing together different parts of your life, and particularly almost 40 years in football. So to be able to do that and reflect on it was enlightening.
Lance Franklin has written the foreword. Very well done there by Lance. He was a huge part of your career, obviously, at the Swans. Very controversial. He says he'd always see you stuffing your face at breakfast and you love eating. You denying the charge?
No, I'm guilty. So there was myself and Josh Kennedy and Lance Franklin on interstate trips for many, many years. We were first down to the buffet breakfast, and it was a competition who could eat the most the morning of the game. So it was really early too, so we'd get down there at 6:30 or 7 o'clock and have breakfast, and that was our ritual. So the three of us used to have breakfast together most mornings.
You did a lot of great things at the Swans, obviously, John, during your career, but how did you keep that signing of Lance Franklin top secret? Because he was an absolute superstar at Hawthorn, probably the biggest name in the game, but you managed to get him to the Swans on a 10-year deal and no one knew about it.
Yeah, his manager texted me one night, and I nearly fell off the couch, and that he was interested in coming to Sydney. His obviously girlfriend back then, now his wife Jacinta, was living in Sydney, so he was interested in coming to Sydney. He was a restricted free agent, so he was coming out the end of 2013 out of contract, and so about 12 months earlier the contact was made, and he wanted to come, and we knew that it would be a challenging environment for him to come. There'd be a lot of criticism that we'd take, and then the AFL may or may not take a good view of that. So we wanted to keep it quiet because we didn't know what would happen between the initial discussion and 12 months down the track. He could change his mind. There's a whole range of things that could go on. So there was about 6 of us that knew. One of them was Jared McVeigh, our co-captain at the time, just to get his viewpoint. And I'm really proud about the fact that we were able to keep that tight. Probably the biggest name in the game at that particular point for 12 months.
I read in the book that you whisked him into a medical while there was an Australia-Sri Lanka cricket test match taking place at the SCG. There were thousands of people walking past.
Yeah, it wasn't a very technical medical meeting either. It was about a 5-minute, how you going, mate? Not too bad. You think you're going okay? You think you can get through the next 9 years of football? No problems. There was no scans, no nothing. So I look at our due diligence then. It wasn't that great, but it was a 9-year contract, 9-year, $10 million contract, and it was a pretty quick one as the cricket was going on at the start of 2013.
All right, now you wrote in the book about 2001. You were a player at North Melbourne. You were getting into player management, I believe, and then an interest came from Sydney to come up and be an assistant coach to Rodney Eade at the time. Yeah. Tell me how that conversation went with your wife, Shelley.
Yeah, well, we just bought a brand new house in Melbourne, and it was our forever home, and we just literally moved in a couple of days before. The boxes were all in the lounge room. I walked in and said, just stop unpacking for a second. And she said, why is that? And I said, well, how would you feel about a trip and a bit of an adventure to Sydney? And she said, you're joking, or words along those lines. And after she'd taken a deep breath, she considered it. We kept the house for a couple of years, but we still haven't got back there. I said we'd be back there in 2 or 3 years and still not there.
Wow. And but you nearly ended up back at the Kangaroos, didn't you? Because you did your assistant coaching duties under Rocket and then Paul Roos, and then it was a bit of a sliding doors moment, wasn't there?
Yeah, that's right. I was about halfway through 2009, and the job opportunity came up at North Melbourne, and I was going down to meet with the Kangaroos on the Wednesday, and Paul Roos knew that, who was coaching at the time, and he walked into my office first thing on the Wednesday morning and said, I'm out the end of 2010, so a year and a half later. And I said, what's that mean? And he said, well, the chairman and the CEO are coming in to talk to you, and within the next few hours they'd offer me the job, a 2-year contract to sign as the Sydney Swans coach, and I had to make a pretty quick decision. My wife thought I'd be on the plane going to Melbourne to interview for the North Melbourne job, and I was actually accepting the Sydney Swans job at the same time.
You could have gone back to the house.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Hey, 2010, end of 2010, you took over from Roosie. Then you won the flag in 2012. You beat Hawthorn in an absolute thriller at the MCG. I thought you would have been bouncing off the walls after winning, but just reading the book, it was relief was the word you used.
Yeah, well, relief's the first thing I think most people use because of the, there's a lot involved. That game went right down to the last 30 seconds, and so we were right in it. We had to coach right to the very end, the very last minute of the game, so he didn't get a chance to actually save it until the siren went. And so when the siren went, it was relief because of it was an enormous game, one of the great grand finals, and so when that siren went, it was just relief. And then on the ground, it was, I was able to soak it up a fair bit after that.
That sporting cliche, the agony and the ecstasy, it's really coined for grand finals, isn't it? Because you felt both. You also felt grand final pain, defeat on 4 occasions. And just reading your autobiography, the 2024 defeat to the Brisbane Lions, that really seemed to hit hard, in particular when you looked out at your young players.
Yeah, I was looking at it. A lot of the players I'd came through and been through for a number of grand finals, and I saw most of these players, nearly all of them, come through as juniors, and so I recruited them and saw them come through as kids, and then seen them come into the senior team, got to know them really well, saw them develop as men and humans, and then often have families at the end of towards the end of their careers, and to be able to stand on grand final day and sort of look across and see the fact that it really hit home that I wasn't going to celebrate a grand final win with them. That was a bit that was a bit heart-wrenching for those moments, but that's also part of life.
It sure is. I'm with former Swans coach John Longmire, who's just released the book John Longmire, Pain, Perspective and Premierships. Another big issue in your career was the Adam Goodes booing saga from 2015. How difficult was that to navigate as a coach? Yeah,
there's a number of different things you've got to juggle as you're going through. First and foremost, it was Goodsy and what he was facing on a Australia-wide basis. It was such a big issue, but it was sort of every week. It just didn't let up. There was always something new going on, and so he was Australian of the Year through that period as well. So there was a lot going on in his life, but he was able to juggle and focus that really well. But in the end, it just got the better of him, and he needed a break. He missed a week, and we had to support Adam, obviously, and still coach the team as we were going through that process. But it was just it took a lot of energy from Adam, and in the end, it was sort of got the better of him towards the end of his career, and he walked away. And unfortunately, there wasn't a great love of the game when he finished up the game, and that's really sad to look back on now. One of our great champions of the game.
Without giving away everything in the book, you did say that you considered maybe taking the team off the field at one point during all that booing.
I should have, and when I look back on it now, it's sort of at the time you're going through, trying to support Adam, but you're also trying to win games, and you've got the focus on the football as well, and you're trying to juggle all these different, in some ways, competing concepts. And but I look back on it now, and I just think we were trying to get through, and trying not to make a big deal of it. But in the end, it was that didn't work. What would another option have been? Another option would have been to actually walk off the ground. Wow. That would have been pretty traumatic, pretty big. But maybe we should have called it out.
Mm. One thing, John, I always noticed about you was you didn't see other sporting codes as rivals. And Sydney Roosters coach Trent Robinson in the NRL, you actually formed quite a friendship with him.
Yeah, I was really lucky and still great mates with Trent. So to be able to spend time in this city, this is the most competitive sporting market in the world in Sydney. So to see so many competing sports and sporting codes up here is amazing. And it's a great fertile environment for a coach. I got to know Trent really well. Obviously, our neighbours there in Moore Park, so got to know him really well over the years. We've travelled overseas together and seen different sporting organisations. I get so much out of listening to guys like Trent, Michael Checker, all these coaches from other sports, and got a great relationship with them. So to be able to have that as a coach, to be able to speak to someone who you're not competing with, but to share stories, war stories in some ways, and compare, I thought was really beneficial for all of us.
What position in rugby league would you play?
Well, it depends. At the start of my career, I would have been on the wing, maybe, when I had some speed. But towards the end, I would have been just give me the ball and run at him. I couldn't move off I was like a train on a train track.
Hey, fun giving players a debut as coach, but on the flip side of that, there's also times you've got to tell players, I'm not picking you this week.
Yeah.
You just explain how tough that can be.
Yeah, I mean, that was, I just always used to be pretty upfront and honest with them, and I always took the responsibility. I thought that was the job of the coaches, to let them know the good and the not so good. And some of the jobs were harder than others. The really tough ones were when they were great players and getting towards the end of their careers, or you had to drop players or not pick players in grand finals. The really tough one was Callum Mills, our captain in 2024, when he had an injury cloud going in, and we had to make a really hard decision on that game. So there were some tougher ones over the journey that certainly took it out of you. When you look back, there's some bruising ones.
When did you know it was time to hang up the clipboard?
I was always going to finish that contract. My last contract was always going to be the end of 25 for the Sydney Swans, and it got to the end of probably halfway through 2024 actually, and we were 12-1. We were on top of the ladder. We were going really well, but I felt I was getting a little bit tired and needed a bit of a refresh. And I spoke to Tom and Tom Harley, our CEO at the time, and thought that it was starting to get towards the end. And then after the season finished, I went overseas for a couple of weeks, came back and really confirmed it. I'm really proud about the relationships I've got at the club, and I wanted that to maintain and be strong going forward. And I thought maybe a year early was better than a year late.
Yeah, good idea. Hey, quick ones to finish. In the coach's box, who was the rival coach that always had you on your toes?
I think Chris Scott from Geelong we started at the same time, and so he was always one that used to be able to throw a few things at you, really keep you guessing. I thought he was one of the better ones.
Who was the greatest Swans player you ever coached?
Oh,
Careful.
That's a tough one. It's a draw between really Goodsey and Bud. Those two would have to be the top.
Okay. The biggest spray you ever gave the Swans? Do you remember a game?
Oh, there might have been a few early days. Nothing compared to the sprays I got as a coach, mind you. A spray back in those days was a genuine spray. These days it was just if you just say that things aren't very good, that's classified as a spray. But there would have been a couple. There was a period there where we went 0-6 there in 2017, and that was a pretty tough period. And I tried a few different things. Certainly sprays didn't work. It wasn't until I gave away the sprays that we actually started winning again.
At the time, were you a fan of GWS coming into the Premiership?
It was always going to be a challenge. We thought, as an established club here, to maintain our membership and our fans, but I think it's helped sharpen us up. I think it's been a wonderful addition. There's always content now, AFL content in this city every week, and I think that's been a real strength for the code. And I think we've benefited as it's turned out.
Who's winning the flag in 2026?
Well, Freo and Swans are 1 and 2. And it's going to come down to 1 and 2, I reckon. It'll get down to there. I think Hawthorn are the other team right in it. So I think Freo have had an outstanding season, but I'm still backing Sydney.
Yeah, nice. I like the sound of that. So what's next for John Longmire? You were in the mix for the Tasmania job. You got your hands full at the Swans still, but there's a couple of jobs at Carlton and Essendon. Any interest in those? There was
some contact early days, but I think they're heading down the path. They'll make some decisions, and I expect those decisions will be pretty quickly too. They won't be far away, those ones.
Is that saying you're not interested?
No, they're going to those jobs will be filled.
Oh, watch this space. Hey, so you're from Corowa in country New South Wales. So you grew up thinking you'd be a farmer. Is that where you're going to end up?
Yeah, although my brother won't let me on the harvester these days because he reckons I've been away from it for too long, and they're worth about $1.5 million. So he said stay off it, even though they can drive themselves. But I'll get back there every summer. But I'm actually I watch. I'm not allowed to participate. I've been away for too long.
Banned. What about that? Controversy. You can find John Longmire, Pain, Perspective and Premierships, published by Penguin in all good bookstores. John, thanks so much for coming into the studio. Congratulations on the book. Why didn't you call it Hawse? I thought we could have that. That was going to be the
Yeah, Horse Talk would have been a good one, but that didn't get past the publishers, so didn't get a run.
Okay, all the best for the future.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.